All right, I'm recording now.
Okay, this is the meeting of the City of San Diego Commission on Police Practices Ad Hoc Committee on Operating Procedures of March the 13th, 2024. And we have in attendance myself. I'm Doug Case. I am the co-chair of the committee and the second vice chair of the commission. We have Clovis Honore, commissioner, and we have Olga Golub, who is our chief investigator, and we may have another commissioner joining us shortly.
Thank you. So I pulled up the procedure where we left off. Let me zoom it a little bit more. Let me know if you can all see it.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. Commissioner Honore.
Managing a few technical issues here. The little bar at the bottom will not go away, so I don't have access to the Zoom controls. But yes, I can see it.
Okay, perfect. All right, so just a reminder that we left off last time at the investigation findings section. Before we get to it, I think there was a question that we there was a question about the admonishment of officer interviews, and you requested that I check with Mr. Bennett whether the Miranda admonition is a necessary part of the officer admonishment. And in his opinion, it must be there because he thinks that officers will not provide a testimony without the Miranda advisement, even if the case can be remotely criminal. And many incidents that the commission will investigate could potentially spill into criminal sphere and result in criminal investigation. So he strongly suggests that it's be kept as part of the admonishment, at least in the beginning for the POA process.
Okay, well, I think we should listen to the strong recommendation of our legal counsel. So I say we leave it in.
I agree.
Okay, I'm fine with that. So I will make a note that the admonishment is left as it is. And if you read it, I mean, obviously you read it, but just the way it flows, the first part of the admonishment is this Garrity Laybarger waiver, which it basically just tells the officers that this is administrative investigation, that they're not waiving their constitutional rights. And frankly, the Miranda admonishment will not always come into play. It's only if an officer invokes their constitutional right, or if we know right away that this is, let's say, like a shooting incident, then we can also read that Miranda admonishment, and then following that Garrity Laybarger waiver, and then hopefully the officer will be that clears any concerns that he has, because the main point is that anything that they provide in the administrative interview cannot be used against them in the criminal investigation. So, and they may not always realize that, but hopefully they're advised of that by their counsels. Like that. Okay, and then there was, I think there were no other questions that we had from the previous. Oh, there was another one. I'm sorry. I'm gonna go back way back to the portion on the guidelines related to type 1 incident investigations, and there was a sentence that Commissioner Honore flagged on investigators will not make any photo, audio, or video recordings while in around the scene. And the consensus was that we paraphrase it just to indicate that investigators will not interfere with criminal investigation, instead of saying specifically that they will not take photos or video recordings. And I removed the sentence completely just because in 2 paragraphs below, it says that nothing in this section supersedes the department's or other investigating agency authority to conduct a proper criminal investigation without interference, and commission investigators will not interfere with criminal investigation. So we already have this sentence, so I just deleted this one, if that's okay with you.
Works for me.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so then going back to the section where we left off, that was the investigation findings. So we discussed some potential findings that investigators can come to as they complete their investigations. And then we discussed what traveled from Mr. Bennett's draft, actions that the commission may take upon reviewing an investigation. And there was discussion about when the commission can summarily dismiss a case. And I don't recall if we discussed whether this should be, whether you want this as an option or not. And we went through some of the scenarios where commission can potentially summarily dismiss a complaint. So remind me if we discussed that question or not.
I do remember us having some conversation on it, and I think most of the conversation surrounded the question of, is this not already subsumed within some of the other options that we have in terms of findings? We have unfounded, we have no finding, and we have referral no jurisdiction.
Yeah.
So some of these seem like they would fit in one of those categories.
And I deleted those because some of them were here.
Oh,
But
okay.
we still have a few scenarios that don't necessarily fall into any of these other categories. So I think we can go through them and think whether these are, I guess, viable scenarios and whether we want to keep them as separate for and as a summarily dismissed scenarios, I guess. So the first one was complaint was not filed in a timely manner. The second was the subject officer is no longer employed by the department, and we discussed, and the commission determines the investigation is not necessary. The complaint is frivolous or clearly devoid of merit, such that no reasonable person could sustain a finding based on facts, and the case investigation is not. I
Completed.
cannot read the word because of.
Completed.
Is not
Completed within 1
completed
year.
within 1 year, nor not including any applicable tolling exemptions.
Mhm.
So I'm okay with leaving that in. I think we discussed last time, number 2. I guess the key thing is that the commission determines whether or not we proceed. Because there could be a case that was fairly minor, and if the person is no longer on the department and it was like a courtesy violation or whatever, it doesn't make sense to do a full investigation. But if it was a use of force or something like that, then it probably would. So I don't have a problem with keeping that in. I think that came directly from CLRB. And I don't think we've done that before with our, but in the past we haven't really. We've just been reacting to IA, and I think IA has a process for doing this. They don't call it summarily dismissing, but if they have complaints that don't. So are you okay, Clovis, with leaving that in?
I'm curious, I think so, but I'm curious in terms of the question you were just raising. So what do they do with the cases that don't rise to the level of investigation, and how are they officially handled?
Well, part of it, a lot of the cases, they find out whether or not the complainant wants to handle it informally.
Right.
But if it doesn't, it's like a case that does not meet the, where do we have if it's not within our jurisdiction?
Yeah,
It's
that's just
in
about,
that was in the referral to another agency. Yeah. like they oftentimes will have a case, for example, where a person complains, but they don't give enough information for the department to determine who the officer was or where the incident occurred.
Yeah, I'm thinking that when I read the actual policy for the police department, they do have a process, right? They do there. It is in there. I can't think of it offhand, but I do remember reading it, and I do remember there being some commentary about, if they don't have enough information, or if it's not credible, or if they don't have a name, an anonymous complaints, things of that nature that they can't follow up on.
Yeah,
So
they
yeah,
do have that process. Yeah, they do have that process. I forget what they call it though, but I don't
Yeah.
think they use the terminology summarily dismiss, but I think I'm okay with that.
yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, what about I don't think we got to the third and fourth point. So the complaint is frivolous, clearly devoid of merit, such that no reasonable person could sustain a finding based on the facts. I guess my question is like, who makes that determination prior to an investigation?
Oh, probably, I mean, it would be the commission, just like the commission. So maybe it should be the commission determines that the complaint is
Well,
frivolous.
yeah, I mean, the commission for sure, but like, what I'm struggling to understand is without conducting an investigation, how can you determine something is devoid of merit? Like without even gathering any facts?
Maybe we should say upon recommendation of the chief investigator and or the counsel, or in this case, currently outside counsel. Because you see all of these before we see them, right?
Yes, but also the idea is that such complaints won't even be initiated, like investigations won't even be initiated. So theoretically, the investigators won't even touch it either. It's once the complaint comes in, I think the idea here is to or maybe not when it comes in. I'm just now thinking that it's after the fact.
What do you mean by after the fact?
I guess it can be both. So I'm struggling to understand at which stage this would apply. So
Right.
for example, the first scenario, the complaint was not filed in a timely manner. That happens once the complaint comes in. And let's say it's brought up to the commission's attention, and they agree that the investigator won't have enough time to do an investigation. So that comes to play before an investigation is initiated. For the second one, too. So the commission summarily dismisses this complaint before it even goes to an investigation. For this one, the complaint is frivolous. Is it also before an investigation, or it's after an investigator gathers evidence and says it doesn't look like there is any merit in this complaint? So maybe this one requires a little more clarification.
Right, because I think
Yeah,
I
but
agree
it
that
says after, I mean, it says after reviewing the investigation or case report, the commission may summarily dismiss the case. And so,
yeah, so it sounds like all of this comes after some form of investigation.
yeah,
Case report or case report, so that can be not necessarily
yeah,
after
but
the
I think the answer to your
investigation.
question is it could probably be anywhere in the process. And so if it's,
Mhm.
on its face, it's frivolous. There's no need to investigate, or it may, the investigator may do a little bit of investigation and
Then determines no merit.
make that determine. And
Okay.
so I would leave it as is, and that leaves the
Okay.
flexibility of making that determination whenever it is deemed necessary in the process.
Sure, I guess I was just trying
Yeah.
to, I guess, put it into somewhere at which point, but it makes sense if there is this flexibility, that I think it's a great thing to have for sure. Okay. So I guess any thoughts on the last one? That if the investigation is not completed within 1 year?
Isn't that pull bar statutory?
Mm-hmm.
And I
I think this is
think,
a good one.
yeah, isn't that Now that I think about the article I just read on Paul from the clerk, that's exactly what he did with those 22 cases a few years ago.
Could you elaborate on that one?
So Paul, what's Paul's last name? Can't think of his last name right now.
Parker?
Parker. Yeah. So the news this morning is that he is resigning.
Oh, yeah.
Effective like within a week or two. In fact, I
Mhm.
think, because I know it said that his resignation will be effective before the next clerk meeting. So he's made his last reports. And one of the things that was said in that report in the news, I can't remember if it's Union Tribune, it was Union Tribune, that there was a situation a few years ago when he came back that there were 22 cases that were expired, and he quote unquote, and shouldn't say quote unquote, but he's based on the language we're using tonight, he summarily dismissed all of those cases.
Mhm.
So because they were all past the 1 year, so I
Mhm.
guess and since you said this information, this terminology comes from clerk, that makes sense.
Mhm. Okay. So I guess, this is a scenario where an investigator is not able to complete that investigation within 1 year, then nothing can be done. So then the case is summarily dismissed.
Yep.
Okay, so I think we're leaving these ones, then this is good. We resumed here, this is good. Okay, so this section is good. We didn't have any notes, so notification of parties, a section that talks about who and how, or who and when will be notified at the conclusion of the interview, the investigation, I'm sorry. Small section, nobody marked any comments or questions in the documents. Did you have any questions or comments on the side on this one?
I don't think so. I think everything I wanted to comment on, I put a comment, and so I don't think I had any comment.
Okay. Okay. So we are at our last section, which is commission investigative hearings, which again, like I mentioned earlier, is also copy and paste from Mr. Bennett's draft, which it looks like it's from clerk's procedure. So I gotta admit, my first question was, do you think that this is necessary? And then we'll go through this piece.
Is there no position?
I'm not sure the word necessary is the right word, but I think it is something that would be a useful tool.
Mhm.
I'm not sure how often we would do it. Paul explained that they created the process, which I think it's a very good process. And due to some MOU with the Deputy Sheriff's Association, they actually haven't used this process. And I forget what the backstory was of all that, but he explained it, but I've forgotten. But the process is a good one, and it gives the commissioners the ability to actually have a hearing and decide issues or make recommendations to the full commission. And it also gives a lot of flexibility. It can be the whole case, it could be just one small portion of the case. And so if you look at the scope of the hearing, it's
Yeah, it says it may consist of a single narrowly drawn issue, multiple issues, or the entire complaint.
and in talking with Andrea St. Julian, she also liked the ability to conduct hearings. And there is a reference in the implementation ordinance, and I don't think they use the word hearing, they use the word investigatory proceeding or something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
And which this would be the same as. And so the ordinance gives us the authority to do it. And even if it's not something that would be regularly used, I would rather put it in and have it available as a tool. If it is something that becomes a huge issue in the meet and confer, I think that's something that could be negotiated. That's why I say it may not necessarily be necessary, but I can see it actually being used as a good tool and gives, the commissioners the ability, individual commissioners the ability to, conduct hearings. And so I think it's a good thing. And I think by and large, I read through the procedures, and the procedures that Herb came up with, I thought were well reasoned, and I thought it was a good model. So that's my 2 cents.
Well, that's a lot more than 2 cents, and I like it. Thank you. That was very helpful. I did read through it sitting here at the moment. I can't say that I have a full comprehension of what I read. It did seem, as you said, well reasoned. I agree. I don't think there's any good reason to leave it out per se, unless, of course, as you say, it becomes contentious with the Police Officers Association and meet and confer. So I agree. I don't really see any good reason to leave it out. My only question, because my first question was going to be, is it actually referenced in the ordinance? And you said it is. The other question was, to what extent, and I'm just thinking out loud because I don't remember all the details, to what extent this, again, thinking in terms of the POA meet and confer, to what extent is this kind of overkill, right? We've already done, the AI has done an investigation. If it came straight to us, we've done an investigation. Is it?
I think this would be in a case where we are doing an investigation, and the investigator determines that there needs to be a hearing to
bring in more information. I think that the items that are listed as the reasons why we would have one,
right?
That there's been undue lapse of lapse in time for occurrence, additional witnesses, evidence, more reason to question the conclusion. Okay. I have no real objection. I think I like it. I think it's okay. It's good for it to be in here.
Okay, thank you. I have some thoughts on that one. So I think these are all good points. I see reasons why to keep it, but I also hear Commissioner Honoree's question in terms of whether this will be an overkill, in a sense that the complaint will be reviewed, complaint will be already investigated. And frankly, if we look at these, I guess, again, scenarios of when the hearing is appropriate, most of it can be done by an investigator during an investigation. So my only concern is, for example, additional evidence, a witness comes to light, investigator just gathers that additional evidence or interviews that additional witness. My only concern is that can be just cumbersome process. Like administratively cumbersome process, and that can delay the investigation. But that's the only my 2 reservations, I guess, about the hearing piece.
Well, and I think that if there is a situation where the investigator comes to a conclusion that the commission doesn't understand, say, or concur with the recommendation for the investigator, it gives them the opportunity of conducting a hearing to gather more information and come to a more informed decision.
And again, even my fallback is always, I want the commission to be in a position to make final decisions about a lot of things. But I'm hearing what our chief investigator is saying about, okay, we did an investigation, we came to these conclusions. The commission has every opportunity to question the investigation, to question the investigator, to raise additional issues, and even to ask the investigator to go back and take another look. And so I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate, because like I said, I don't have any problem with being in there, but then it becomes a question of, well, do we need a hearing process? Right? And that's why I'm using the term overkill. It's like, I think we have mechanisms, but the other side of that, so the 2 kind of flip sides of the coin. One is, I think it's a good that if we wisely use it sparingly, I think it's a good tool for us to have as a commission. But the other side of that is, these are, if I remember correctly, what I read here, this is a closed hearing. So it's kind of like the only public that gets access to this is the commission itself. And that's what I'm saying. Well, the commission has access to everything already. My bottom line would be, let's keep it. But I'm just saying that
the
there's all these
commissioners,
concerns.
yeah, but the commissioners don't get a chance to interview complainants or witnesses directly.
Are we equipped to do
They
that?
will have an opportunity to listen to interview, read the interview report.
Yeah, but
Let's imagine a situation where it gets to and ultimately the commission votes on it, right? So
Right.
if the commission disagrees with the finding or wants an investigator to go back and ask some questions that they didn't ask, again, I think all of
Okay.
that can still be done in a closed session when the case is discussed and presented by an investigator without necessarily doing a hearing, but that would not allow, yes, the commission to question or invite the
Mhm.
parties to testify, I guess.
Yeah,
So.
which kind of goes back to the initial question, is it necessary? And I don't think it's necessary, but I think it could in some circumstances be a very valuable tool. And
Okay.
that's why, and especially since we are empowered to do it, I'd rather have something that addresses the power that was given to us rather than just ignoring the power that was mentioned in the ordinance.
And then I agree. I like that too. Okay. What triggers an investigative hearing?
The commission.
Okay, let me see. I think the commission, I think it's here. So it goes back to the previous section, investigations finding. So after the commission reviews the case, one of the options the commission has, conduct an investigative hearing. So that would be the commission citing.
Oh, I see. Okay, you're down here. Okay. Okay. I mean,
No.
okay.
Okay, so I guess,
Yeah.
seems like we want to keep it, or
Yeah.
looks
Yeah,
like the benefits
I'd say we
outweigh
keep it.
the drawbacks.
Yeah, and I think when we present that to the when we make our report to the commission on procedures, we could mention that we had a discussion of that and highlight this section as a section that we had a discussion and decided that we could keep it, but it is not necessary.
So
I would not say it that we would be something that we would want to negotiate and meet and confer, because the POA watches all of our meetings and that would signal to them. But we can say that we had a discussion of whether it was necessary, and we felt that it was a useful tool and decided to keep it in.
okay, so just to drop a big splashy rock into this already rippling pond, maybe we want to make this a separate entity. Take the hearing process out of the investigations and make there an investigative hearing
Procedure.
document separate. Yeah, procedure separate from the investigative procedure. Like I said, a big splashy rock in an already rippling pond.
I don't have a problem with that. What do you see as the benefits of that as opposed to keeping it here?
It takes it out of the whole investigative procedures system. We're having this debate ourselves, and we're just the two of us. Unless I'm not looking at the Zoom, so I don't know if anybody else has joined. It's the two of us, three of us. We don't have the other members of the committee, and then we have the entire commission, and then we have, like you said, oversight, people taking a look at what we're doing. If this feels to any extent like it may be some kind of poison pill for the investigative procedures, maybe it's easier to take it out and make it a separate entity. And then, if there's objections to it from POA or anyone else, it doesn't bog down the procedures themselves to begin with, and it can be modified without having to take the entire investigative procedure back to a modification process.
Can you scroll down a little bit more to the end of this to see? Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff here. Where are you trying to go to, sir?
to see what the options were at the conclusion of a hearing.
Yeah, page.
Okay, evidence.
So I don't have page numbers, so I can't tell you. I'm at page.
Upon, okay, I think it's this one,
Yeah,
so,
upon consideration, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cough into the microphone.
It's okay.
sorry, let me just see if it's this one, conduct authority to come down, investigate hearing, okay, I think it's
thi-
this one.
I think
Yeah.
you're at the right place, yeah.
Mhm. Wow.
Actually, I think that Commissioner Honore makes a good point, because it is a little bit different process than the investigation,
Mhm.
investigative process. And it might make sense to simply have it, keep it as it is, unless you want to make some tweaks, but make it into a separate procedure.
I'd vote for that.
Yeah, I think there's some logic to that.
Okay, I mean, I agree with you all, you're the majority, again, I think I would still advocate against it, but.
Against taking it out? And making it
No,
separate?
against just having it,
Having it all together.
yeah,
Well,
I don't know, I think it's just so cumbersome and I don't know.
Well,
Well,
that
no,
would even be all the more reason to take it
and,
out and separate it into something separate.
you know, and that's a discussion the full commission can have.
Yeah,
And I think that discussion is easier if we separate it.
Right.
okay, so we'll separate it into completely separate procedure, okay?
Okay.
So.
There are a
let
few more
me
notes. Yeah.
Comment, so separate into a procedure, but we did have some comments here though, right?
Yeah, there's a few more comments on it.
So one was the investigative hearing panel of the commission shall consist, okay, so the investigative hearing panel, where this comes into play the first time. I think this is the first time it's mentioned here. The investigative hearing panel of the commission shall consist of 5 members of the commission as selected by the chair, with 1 member designated as the presiding member. So first of all, does it mean to say that the investigative hearing is only conducted by a panel, or as opposed to an entire commission?
I think that's the intent. And I
Right,
think it'd be real cumbersome to, especially if we had a full commission, to try to do a hearing with 23 people.
right.
That would
Yeah, I
be
think I did see that in here somewhere, actually.
and yeah. And so I guess the question, designated, I guess, by the chair as the presiding.
Yeah, that's my question.
Does that answer your question, Commissioner Ari, by the chair?
Well, is
Or-
that what that, because it doesn't actually say that, right? It said the 5 members are selected by the chair, and then 1 member is designated as a presiding officer, but doesn't give a process for doing that.
Oh, who designates the presiding member?
Correct. Is that selected by the committee, the panel, or does the chair appoint that person?
I would say the chair appoints, although I wouldn't have an objection to having them select their own chair. But we should say,
How was the determination made in the ad hoc committees? Who is the chair of the ad hoc committee?
We
that
just
was
selected our
appointed.
own chairs.
Yeah, that was appointed by the chair.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, and under the bylaws, the when you have committees, the chair appoints, the chair of the commission appoints the chair of the committees.
Oh, well then, let's just leave it as the chair then. Just consistency and simplicity.
Okay, then, but we should put in there with 1 member designated by
As a
the
presiding member
chair.
By the chair. Yeah, just by the chair after member should be simple enough, I think.
Or I was gonna put after the word designated, but designated by the chair.
Okay. By the chair of the CPP.
Okay,
Okay.
We
So
might want
Mark-
to, we might want
Dennis
to
Revolt.
specify chair of the CPP because there are other chairs.
Yeah, but
it's-
it refers to the commission and it says that of the commission, so as selected by the,
Yeah, that
you
makes
can,
sense. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Okay, so this one
Okay.
is resolved, so then there was other question. Okay, that was just my question. A copy of the confidential investigative hearing panel report shall be forwarded to the extent afforded by law to each complainant and subject officer. So not necessarily how this will report look like, that can be determined afterwards, but more like who will draft this report? That was my question when I was reading this. Would it be the panel, like a designated panel member, panel similarly to what the case review groups do?
I would think so.
yeah, or maybe make it the responsibility of the presiding, what do we call it? The presiding,
Panel member,
Presiding
panel member.
presiding member.
yeah, so the presiding member shall
Okay.
be responsible for,
So I'll write it here. Member.
so be
Or-
responsible for, drafting a hearing panel report,
An investigative hearing panel report.
right?
Investigative hearing panel report. A copy of which? Which shall be forwarded to the extent afforded by law. I think there is a comma missing here, to each complainant and subject officer. Does that look okay?
Yep.
Okay, so I think, and then I don't think we need to have an answer right now as to how it will look like. I
Yep.
guess something can be determined after. So I will mark this one as resolved.
There we
And
go. Something else down here.
there
Okay.
was Commissioner Honoree.
What did I say?
So if the subject officer does not testify on their own behalf, they may be called and examined as if under cross-examination. Mm,
So we're still in the hearing, right? Evidence.
yeah, it's evidence at investigative hearings. Evidence shall be taken in accordance with the following provisions. Okay, this looks like it should be just another point, so I just need to find a place for it. Just seems like it's standing alone. And this is just a standalone point. Irrelevant and unduly repetitious evidence shall be excluded, and Commissioner Honoree asked who makes this determination. The panel, I guess.
I guess the panel would.
Or the panel chair, I guess.
Yeah, probably, presiding officer normally would.
Presiding. Yeah, okay. I'm good with that.
What, and then so maybe just a sentence that says if the subject officer does not testify, maybe make that B and this,
Yeah,
we'll get it.
I will format it appropriately after the meeting, so I just don't want to spend time formatting it right now. But here, irrelevant and unduly and repetitious evidence shall be excluded by, oh, somebody
No,
just.
I took it out.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good with it. The way it is. And I guess Robert Rules of Order would say that the chair would have the authority to, or the responsibility or authority to do that. So that's
So
what
the chair, or the presiding member, I'm sorry.
presiding member.
Yeah, presiding member.
By the presiding member.
Or maybe as determined by the presiding member.
Okay. Okay, and then there was the last one. This is each party, including the CPP and any witness, shall have the right to have an attorney, a representative of his or her choice, present at all times during, okay, I think I'm gonna go through this and just change the pronouns to them first of all, but that's just a
Yeah, I like
side
that.
note.
And also
Uh,
change this, the CPP to commission. That's how we do it
Yeah.
throughout.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna make a note so I don't forget, sorry, let me just pause here. To commission. And then,
Yeah, reading through these here again, I can see where this would be contentious in the
Meet and confer.
meet and confer.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's a good call to separate it.
so that the investigations procedure can potentially go through it easier, and then we can do our own investigations without waiting for the hearing part. Okay, but I'm sorry, I was mid-sentence reading this. So each party, including the commission and any witness, shall have the right to have an attorney or representative of their choice present at all times during their own fact-finding interview or at the investigative hearing. The representative shall or may not be a witness or a person involved in the same investigation. May is fine to me, but I don't know if shall is a stronger word.
Yeah, shall is stronger.
Yeah, and so what little I know about legal language, if it says may not be a witness, that means it also may be a witness.
Mm,
So it could be a witness or a person involved in the same investigation that they're using as their representative. If that's okay, if that's the intent, then we leave it as may. If the intent is to exclude other witnesses and other persons involved in the investigation from being the representative of anybody, any other party, then the word should be shall.
Yeah, I think
I
it should be
think the
shall.
intent is to include. Change that to shall. Okay. And it looks like we're done with the notes in the document. Did you have any other like side notes or any comments that we didn't go through?
I don't think I did.
Not me, those are the ones I had.
Okay, so I'll take a look at this document. I'll format it properly in the Word document, not in the Google Drive, because sometimes it's funky, so I'll make sure it's good and presentable. I'll split the investigative hearing portion, and do we want then to present them both to the commission as two separate
Yes.
procedures?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay.
And then I'm wondering again, politically speaking, do we want to present the investigative procedures by itself and at a later point and present the hearing information?
Well, let me check to see how the cabinet wants to do it.
Okay, yeah, that
Yeah,
makes
just in
sense.
terms
I
of
like that.
timing.
Mhm.
I guess the broader package is I don't think we reached a firm conclusion of whether or not we were going to put all the procedures to the city council at the same time, or whether we're going to do it in a couple of batches. And I remember the discussion back and forth, but I don't recall that there was ever a final decision made. But be that as it may, Olga and I are going to be talking about categorizing all of the procedures in upcoming telephone conversations. So maybe at that time we can determine what the next procedure is that this committee is going to work on. I think that, there are several that the Dwayne drafted, like the subpoena procedures and
Yeah.
and so forth, that are just legal, that I don't think we would have much input on. I mean, we should review them and obviously see if Olga has any questions or concerns, but we may be able to do those as a package, maybe at our next meeting. And so we may be done with the investigation parts of them after we get done with that last piece. And then the next one that I've agreed to draft, and I did a previous draft, but things have changed since then, is the case review procedures. And part of that is going to be determining whether or not we want to continue doing them the way we have been doing them. Anyway, so that'll be a and part of what we may decide to put that in a separate package, or we may put it in the same package. I don't know. As I think I was mentioning, well, I forget who I was mentioning it with. The one reason why it's important that we get the case review procedures approved somewhat expeditiously is right now we are not reviewing internal cases. In other words, those cases that don't come from a complaint, and we have not only the authority but the duty to review those, and we're not, because they're not mentioned in the interim procedures that we're using.
Yeah.
And I think in most cases we can simply change the terminology of complaint to investigation of alleged misconduct, which would include both complaints, internal and external. Anyway, and Olga and I are going to be discussing some of those issues when we meet as well. And so if it's okay with you, I'll determine what the next step of this committee is after I have that discussion with Olga. But my thought is that we probably ought to put the associated legal operating procedures that Dwayne drafted as the next thing that this committee does, so we can be done with the investigative package, and then we can start discussing the case review issues. Does that sound reasonable?
The associated legal operating procedures?
Yeah, i.e. the there's a few. The subpoena.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
Pitches,
Pitches,
motions.
motions, mediation. Okay.
Yeah.
Those what we mean
Not the
by
mediation, but the pitches, motions, and the subpoena.
subpoenas.
I don't know.
I think
Administration
there's
of discipline. Because I see complaint administration, SDPD, administration of discipline process 1 and 2, mediation, pitches and police discovery, subpoenas, and then it says the following need to be drafted: disclosure and release, outreach and communications, community evaluation of commission's processes and performance. I mean, there's a whole list of stuff here: hiring, training, review, evaluation.
We'll see what, and part of it is that we don't think. And we have to probably confirm this with Dwayne, but we don't believe that all of the procedures that are mentioned in the ordinance need to go through a meet and confer. In other words, it mentions in the ordinance that we have to have a policy on our website regarding what's on our website. That's not something that should go through meet and confer. Although I think all of our policies, they have the option of saying we want to conduct a meet and confer on that. Anyway, that's why I'm saying that we need to categorize our operating procedures and then prioritize them, and so we'll go ahead and do that, and we'll put in the notice of the next meeting. And did we decide on when our next meeting is going to be? I think we decided we're gonna meet the week after the regular meetings.
Yeah.
And do we have an extra Wednesday in
March?
No.
No, we don't. So our next meeting would be
27th.
the 27th. Okay.
Yeah, I think the schedule is pretty much set in terms, and was it until May or something like that for every other Wednesday, just not the Wednesday when the commission is meeting at 6 p.m. But I think
Well, I think we decided not necessarily every other Wednesday, because then that you get screwed up if you have five Wednesdays, and so we decided the Wednesday after the week where there's a CPP meeting. And so if there's 5 Wednesdays in a particular month, recently we just simply would not meet on that Wednesday.
Mhm.
And, okay, and so unless you hear otherwise, you can anticipate, that, I'll refer to them as associated, legal, procedures will be what we go over next time. And then we'll also give a report of what our strategy is going to be for, the rest of the operating procedures. And, I guess I also want to, discuss with the cabinet, what their intent is for the other procedures. It could be that for the ones that don't need to go through city council approval, and meet and confer, that we refer those to the rules committee of the commission. And then this committee the ad hoc committee would complete its work when we're done with the case review procedures. But that's another thing that Olga and I can discuss, and then I can get direction from the cabinet on how to proceed.
Okay, so just for clarity, we will be meeting on the 27th. Is that correct?
The 27th, and the agenda most likely will be the associated legal policies, but I'll confirm that after I have my meeting with Olga.
Okay.
And probably the cabinet as well. And then if you like, Doug, you let me know the plan and I'll send the reminder to the entire ad hoc committee with the letting them know
yeah.
what the procedures and when is the meeting, so that everybody is on the same page with
Yeah.
that.
And actually, if we can try to meet on Friday, so because the cabinet meets on Saturday. and
Okay,
then
yeah.
That way I can run it by the cabinet and then we can proceed
Yeah.
from there.
Yeah, Friday works for me. And then just we didn't discuss this, I'm sorry. So I'll format this investigations procedure and I'll send it your way, Doug. I mean, I'll post it on the Google Drive regardless, but I'll send it your way so that you can have it together with all the other procedures that are ready.
Okay, and I don't know if you took minutes this time, it wasn't necessary, but I think we ought to let the other committee members know that we broke up those two procedures, and so they're not confused by that.
Okay, I mean, I'll document everything in the minutes.
Okay, so you are taking minutes because last time it was simply who was attending and when our next meeting was going to be.
Well, because I'm kind of going through the procedure
Right.
also by minutes. are not
Okay, yeah,
detailed.
and it doesn't need to say anything other than what we just said, that we just split up the
Yeah.
okay. Well, it is now 8:34. But since we got
All right.
started a couple of minutes late, we can still adjourn.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and I'll see you all.